Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our masterclass with Sony and Sandra Åberg. My name is Annie, and I'm here with my colleague in the Sony headquarters in Copenhagen, my colleague Hung here. Hello.
Good evening, guys.
And of course, our bright Sandra, amazing Sandra Åberg, our ambassadors. I'm sorry, guys. Hi, Sandra. How are you doing tonight?
Hi. Welcome, Sandra.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
Perfect.
It's really nice.
We're very excited to see what you have prepared for us. And of course, can you tell us a little bit what the people, the audience today can expect from this masterclass that you have prepared?
Yeah, so I wanted to put together a masterclass about editorials and sort of creative inspiration of how you can work with editorials to bring forward your better self really in photography. And so I made a masterclass to sort of inspire that, and with also very useful kind of hands-on tips, I hope. And anything you need that you don't feel is mentioned, you ask at any time. So feel free to ask.
Perfect. We're very excited actually to see in a bit what's coming. But that's not all for tonight. We have prepared lots of things with Sandra, but also we have some things to tell you, practical things, before we start. So, Hung, what do you have to tell our audience today?
We have a lot of surprises today. We have prizes and promotions from Sony side, but also from Sandra Åberg's camera strap brand called Jam Darling, and also from our partners Profoto and Capture One. So let's look at the prices and promotions that we can offer you tonight, exclusively for you guys out there. So when it comes to promotions from Sony side, we are right now running summer cashback. So with the summer cashback, it started actually on the 5th of May and will end on the 31st of July. So you still have a lot of time to go and buy your new camera or lens, because you can get up to 400 euro in cashback. So in Danish kroners, it's up to 3,000 Danish kroners. Yeah, 4,000 Norwegian kroners and 4,000 Swedish kroners. So remember that we have summer cashback ongoing right now. And at the same time, when you buy a new camera, which we hopefully think that you will, so when you buy a new camera, you can actually get 1 year extended warranty together with the existing warranty, but only in Denmark, Sweden and Finland, because in Norway, they already have the 3-year warranty. So when you register your new camera, you will get extra 1 year extended warranty. But that's not it. You can further get more cashback and discount. So together with the system camera you are purchasing, when you purchase a new lens or 2 new lenses, up to 3 lenses, and you register your purchase, you can actually get additional extra discount and cashback with the new lenses that you purchase, up to 100 euro per lens, up to 3 lenses. And exclusively only for tonight, because you are with us, when you buy any of our full frame cameras in a photo specialist store. So I mean, in a photo specialist store, you have to go to the photo store physically. When you buy any of our existing full frame cameras models like A7 III, A7R3, A7R4, A9, A9 II, A7S3 and A1, you will get a free 64 gigabyte tough SD card, the world's best and most tough SD card, worth like 190 euro. And this promotion ends on the 20th of June, so you can go to a photo store and buy one of our full frame cameras and get this 64 gigabyte SD card for free. But there's one thing, you need to give them a promotion code, because when you give them a promotion code in the store, you have to tell them that this is a promotion from Sony Masterclass, and the promotion code, you can see it on the slide, it's saying SM64GB, and this promotion code, we will also send it to you afterwards as a follow-up in your email. So that's the promotion when you buy a new full frame camera. And from Jam Darling, we have these very nice camera straps, very high quality, made in Italy actually. the promotion from Gem Darling is that you get 20% off when you order the Gem Darling camera straps at gemdarling.com, and then you have to put in the discount code SONYClass20, SONYClass20. Then you'll get 20% off the camera strap. And then, of course, if you want to have more light, you want to have like a flash, then you can buy the Pro Photo. So from Pro Photo side, you can buy either the A10 or A1X, and together with that flash unit, and you buy the new OCF adapter starter kit, you'll get 43% discount off the new OCF adapter starter kit. Yeah, 43% off that starter kit when you buy a Pro Photo A10 or A1X. And then we have Capture One. As you know, Capture One is a professional editing, raw editing conversion software. Capture One Pro. So when you want to purchase the Capture One Pro, you just put in a promotion code saying Sony_A1, then you get 20% off the Capture One for Sony Pro software. And this promotion ends on the 11th of June. So it ends on the 11th of June. So these are very nice promotions that we have ongoing, especially with the 64GB TOF card you get for free when you buy any of our full frame cameras. And now we would also like to give you the opportunity to win some prizes as well. So for tonight, we have some really nice prizes for you. The only thing you need to do is after the masterclass, or maybe during a break, you can go and take the survey, which is just in below of the streaming window, and you just take the survey. When you take the survey, you will be able to win some really, really nice prizes. And also, you have the opportunity to vote what prize you want to win. So what's not to like? Remember that.
You can also choose all of them, of course.
Yes, you can choose all of them. Of course, they will just send you one of them that we feel like you should have. And the prizes are from Sony, from Gem Darling, Pro Photo, and of course also Capture One. So let's see what are the prizes. From Sony side, we will give you 2 pairs of the award-winning, awesome, the world's best headphone, WH-1000X Mark IV. These are very, very gorgeous headphones with very nice noise cancelling, very high quality. 2 pairs of these. One of them can be yours after this masterclass, after you have taken the survey. And also from Gem Darling, we have 2 camera straps. So 2 very high quality camera straps worth €330 per camera strap. So these will also be have the opportunity to win tonight as well. And from Capture One, you will have the opportunity to win up to 5 licenses. 5 free licenses of the Capture One Pro software. So one of them can be yours as well. And from Pro Photo, they will give out free of their Pro Photo Academy series called Fundamentals of Light. And this is worth like 1,849 Swedish kronor. So it's a very high value Academy series from Pro Photo. So they will give away 3 of those. So these are the prizes we're going to give out tonight when you enter the questionnaire, either during the break or after the masterclass. So that's it from my side. So let's get back to the studio and continue our masterclass.
So before we start with Sandra, I would like to remind you, or to tell you actually, please feel free to ask any questions throughout the evening as they come in your head. We really encourage you, don't be shy. We cannot see your face. So please ask questions, and we will have a Q&A session after the masterclass. So back to Sandra. Sandra.
Yes. One more thing I want to add.
Yes.
Is that we also have colleagues from Pro Photo and Capture One sitting there. So if you have any questions for Pro Photo or Capture One during tonight, please feel free to put it in the chat box and they will answer your question right away.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Hung. Yes.
Yeah.
So Sandra.
Yeah.
So For the people who don't know you very well, I'm sure we have many of your followers here and people who admire your work. But for those who don't know you very well, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself and show us the presentation you have prepared for us?
Exactly. I thought I would just run over through a few things that I felt like needed to be highlighted. And for those of you who know me, and for those of you who don't know me, it might be nice to just kind of get a bit of an introduction. So I put together this masterclass with a hope of sort of during this weird COVID times we've had, I really felt like I had this need to inspire people to maybe do different work that they're currently doing or go in different directions, maybe anything like that. And so it was cool that Sony was keen on the idea and teamed up with me on this so that we can bring it to you guys tonight. But a little bit about me. So I really started out in the fashion industry. I started out with fashion and weddings, but mainly fashion to begin with. And I think at some point that kind of that industry I got a bit done with, and I moved more into the weddings and the more of the fashion wedding editorials, which at the time was quite uncommon. And a lot of people told me that you couldn't combine fashion with wedding, because weddings at that time was kind of these just boring kind of events under a tree with a couple and not very fashionable at all. But I insisted, and I think also like the industry insisted, so a lot followed that. So we really kind of now have built an industry of a wedding fashion industry as well as just a wedding or a fashion industry. So that's short about me, and on the slide you can see some of the work that I've been featured in. I think it's more of a of a safety thing to know that actually I might know a little bit of what I'm talking about, but that's up for you to judge. But I have been featured in various magazines. I don't know that that's the aim for you, and it might not be, but for a lot of photographers that's kind of what we dream about, and I really wanted to try to inspire you and help you to make your dreams come true. So and so a lot of people know the Vogue covers and the things about me, but what they might not know is that I'm quite unfashionable in my private life, and live in the country in Sweden and love it there, and spend most of my time hiking and going to places out in nature is really what I love to do, and also where I find a lot of inspiration. Also, I wrote a children's book together with my little wetsuit family that you can see in the photo, and that is probably one of my greatest achievements to date. Really, I think that was such a cool thing to do, and it's also kind of like you might not be featured in a magazine, but then now you can create something that saves the planet and does something good. So it has all kinds of angles. But this masterclass, like I said before, I really truly just wanted to inspire and give what I have learned during my about 12 years of this, give and take. But I think to be able to pass on information and knowledge is something that today we can do so easily online, and I think it's super important that we keep doing that. And I felt like we needed a little bit of the nitty-gritty of the, the settings and the lenses. But if you guys have any more questions about that, do feel free to write it. But I'll go over it kind of now, what I used to do these different photos. I think Hung is the one for all the technical questions as well, and you can ask online as well.
We are here to answer you.
We're here to serve you.
Yes.
So here are some of the shots from Tuscany. So I did a photo shoot in Tuscany and one in Sweden, because I felt like it was a bit of cheating if I just showed a photo shoot from Tuscany. Because it's beautiful, the light is perfect, and maybe not everybody in Scandinavia right now can travel to Tuscany. So only be fair to do both. But this is basically the shoot in Tuscany, and I feel like you're better off just reading through it, and you can see what I shot. All of these with the new A1, which was an incredible camera really to shoot with. A lot of the work I've shot with the 50 1.2, but there is other lenses in there as well. Yeah, so this is, again, it's still from Tuscany. I like to shoot it very, very, like if I can shoot it at 1.2, I will. If I feel a bit hesitant about it, I won't. But that's what I love to do. And that's what you can see as well in the settings. And I think that's just, for some photographers, this is super interesting. For others, it's not. But you should have the opportunity to see it. And here are some of the photos that I did in Sweden. This was a quite difficult backlit situation in a very dark barn that had no light coming from where I was standing. So we did have to include lights, and you'll see more of that in the masterclass of all the light setups. But here you can definitely see all the rest of it. And also, you feel free, like we'll send this to you guys as well, so you have it afterwards if you want to look at the details. And another one from Sweden with the little sheep and the horses. And again, here I used both the Sony A1, but also the Sony A7 R3. Both those cameras really I used for this shoot, so I alternated a bit, and also with the lenses to try out different things.
And we will see more behind the scenes
yes,
in the video.
Exactly. That's why it's
up.
just kind of, because some people really care about those
Yeah.
details. And so I wanted to create this like from start to finish thing of the workshop. The idea stage, take you through the planning stage, the gear and the light setups, and also the actual shoot, and sort of show you some behind the scenes as well as we're going through it. And then we'll have the editing by Capture One, which is going to be super cool. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm very excited about that.
Yes, we kept it a surprise, so you can see what they did with your picture.
Exactly, so you'll get the live reaction.
Exactly.
And then we'll talk a little bit about submitting your work and getting featured in magazines, of course. Any questions, anytime, are so welcome. Really, I've made this for you guys, so it's up for you to make the most of it and ask any questions you want. Yeah, so I think that was it for me. I think we want to show the actual video.
Yes, we want to show the part one of this video, which is all about how to find ideas and inspiration, how you find ideas and inspiration, and how do you plan actually a Vogue / editorial photo shoot as well. Before we go there, anything else you would like to add?
Well, I did want to add that I felt like it needed a PDF of some sort, so you have the information for once you run through your own editorial, the checklist of what not to miss, because of course it's a bit harder to maybe write it down or have the notes ready. So I'll get that to you guys. I think they sign up, or you send an email out where they can sign up afterwards.
I will send instructions how they can get this PDF from you.
And you will take care of all that.
Yes. So without further ado, we will go to our first part of the masterclass that Sandra shot in Sweden. So let's go.
Hi guys, and welcome to my masterclass. I'm super excited to put together this masterclass. Originally I always thought that I would do one on wedding photography to start with, but as COVID had it, that was not the case, and I found that we had to find new ways to be creative and
gain traction and do work. So what was better than doing editorial, which is some of my favorite works to do, whether it's featured in a magazine or just do it sort of as like a portrait editorial session. I love that as well. And my background is very much in the fashion industry. It's where I come from, and it's what I used to do and love, until I kind of felt like that wasn't my calling anymore. So I decided to go more towards other things such as editorials, more romantic things, which is really what I'm passionate about. So in this masterclass, I want to teach you guys everything about how I do editorial work, and really basically take you through from the idea stage of an editorial to you'll see through the whole execution of an actual editorial. There is like the makeup part and the clothes part. Well, I'll talk you through it more, and then there's all the planning of it, and then there's of course the fun part, which is shooting. On the shooting part, I always find it super interesting to be allowed to like come behind the lens of the photographer and see what's going on, because I think we all think that everybody else is so professional or have this secret recipe, and I think the truth in photography is that of course our gear matters and a lot of the things matter, but for me personally, I think a lot of it is the creative implementation of the ideas you actually have. So definitely for editorial work, that's what I think is important to look at. And then we'll go through a little bit of the editing side of it. We don't have too much time on it, but I've been asking Capture One to actually do like a specific editing session, which is separate from the actual workshop, but you'll have access to that one as well. So you can see how it would be edited in Capture One to fit my style. But I do want to just run quickly over, once you have your images in the house, like what I do to call and find the images that are going to be the ones representing the shoot. And that can be a really tricky thing, but I'll run you guys through that as well. I had an idea to do 2 different shoots. I wanted to do one in Sweden in the grey and cold, and then I wanted to do another one in Tuscany in the sunny, beautiful hillsides that is so, the environment just lends itself to being photographed. And in all truth, I feel like that is less of a challenge than it is to do a shoot in Sweden on a rainy day. So I planned a rainy day. No, I didn't, but it rains quite often, and so it rained on our shoot, and we had to bring in lights, and so we'll play with that as well, and I'll show you guys how I work with lights. I do prefer natural light. I do prefer always to work with lights that look as natural as possible, but sometimes we gotta be able to put in a sun when there is none, and I felt like that was important to not just show the easy side of photographing in a stunning location in Tuscany, but also include an equally stunning shoot, I think, in a dark barn in Sweden. So I'll run you guys through all of that in this course, and my aim is that you guys are going to be able to do this yourselves and truly just master editorial photography, because it's so fun. It's just so fun. The first part of doing an editorial is always the idea. And I'm asked all the time where I get my ideas from and what inspires me. And I think for me that is completely random. It is what's going on around me, it's what I see, it's what I hear. I think it's what I experience in my life. So it happened to be that for this particular shoot, I was visiting some family and I had all the kids with me, and we were gonna go find Easter eggs, and they had hidden them in this dark hayloft. And as we go up there, the kids get super excited, they're looking for the eggs, and it's a really sunny day, so the light just streams in through the cracks in the barn. And then the kids decide to jump around on the hay bales because they're super excited. They're trying to find Easter eggs. And as they're jumping around, the dust kind of flies up from these dusty old hay bales, and it creates this just magical light because the light streams through and you can see the air. And I'm standing there watching it, and I'm photographing it with my phone. And that's how that shoot kind of came to be. I was like, wow, imagine this. And it was a broken old barn, but you can see beauty in the most weird places if you're looking. So I think that's super important to say, like, whatever really speaks to you, what you see that you love. In the wintertime, I went into the forest here in Sweden, and it was snowing. But I found out that if you shake a tree really hard, the snow will kind of fall down. And it creates just these insane photos when the light comes from behind, which is how I like to shoot. I like to shoot backlit most of the time. So any light coming towards me is sort of what triggers me. And every photographer is different, but that is, for me, that will inspire me anytime, any day, anywhere really. So this is how the shoot came to be. The idea really came from a complete random day doing something with my family, and I think that's a very important point to make, is that as creatives we got to go out there in the real world and live. We can't just sit here and wait for ideas to pop into our heads uninspired, you know. So I tend to do stuff, go out and leave work behind, and that's how I find inspiration. So first things first, find inspiration. And also in these times, where you live. You know, there can be incredibly beautiful things just around the corner. So go have a look. Something you've always thought was so beautiful on your way driving home. The light at a specific time of day. Also, when you're at home, you know your environment so well, or the roads to your house, or the building and how the sunlight hits it in exactly at 5 o'clock. Like, those things are what we can capture and photograph and make it into a styled shoot, make it into an editorial. Use that, and even though it seems trivial because you see it every day, I mean, it isn't for people seeing it for the first time. So yes, definitely do it. Go ahead, just try it out, do an editorial. And here's where most people go, well, wait, where am I gonna get clothes? Where am I gonna get the model? How about the makeup artist? So let's just bog down into that for a little bit. I think that we can do amazing things with friends and family, and, you know, the good old shops in which they have like clothes that you can buy that other people has not wanted anymore. I mean, they have incredible clothes at in those kind of stores. Like recycled and oftentimes really amazing stuff. Also, I've done shoots with only fabrics. Like, I always have fabrics in my bag, and sometimes it turns out that the clothes didn't work, or it's a little bit not what I imagined, and out comes fabric, like random lengths of different kinds of fabrics that you can buy at any store. And whenever I find something I like, or a designer or something had something left over, I've asked to take it. And I mean, I've wrapped models in it, and you'd be surprised what you can do with IKEA curtains. You know, anything like that, just bring it and be creative with it. Put a little string around, and don't be so scared to play. Maybe find a girl on Instagram that you could collaborate with. I think it doesn't always need to be a model. It can be a pretty girl on Instagram, or a guy, or whatever you want. And if you feel really insecure to do that, I mean, you can do it with like a friend of yours or someone else, or you could even, I think some of the best things is like even just trying it out. Like, put something there with the light at the time. If you feel like you need to practice that, wrap a thing around it and sort of just do a test shot of the thing that you envision. If you're really kind of feeling wary about it, but other than that, I'd say just go ahead and do it, because it's so much fun once you get started. And we're allowed to have fun, you know? I give you hereby permission to have fun, because photographers that have fun become very successful photographers, in my opinion. It's a funny kind of business because it's not really your standard business. It's not like just work hard, and I mean, it is a lot of hard work, but it cannot be just hard work, because it's also a lot about your creativity and what you bring out of yourself in your images. I think it's super important to give yourself that permission to let out what is for you important. When you look at my work, you'll primarily see very pastel, beautiful universes of, you know, flower petals, and I think it's important to just say that is my photography style. It's what I'm drawn towards. I like to create this world of bliss and ease and freedom and beautiful women that are empowered. That's what I'm truly passionate about. And oftentimes those things we're really passionate about comes from our own struggles, our own maybe negative beliefs or worries of what we're not allowed to do. And you know, I think maybe that has been a big struggle for me in my life, so I've expanded that within my photography and truly made that like, that's what you're allowed to do here. You can play. So play. Once you've dreamt up your idea and you're ready with your idea, the planning stage is important. Spend some time kind of narrow down your vision. For me, I go like for long walks and think up the shoot in my head and imagine what it's gonna look like, how everything, like I dream it up in my head so I see it super clearly. In the barn I saw this girl and I wasn't sure, but it was just very dreamy. There's a light coming through from the back in the barn, and I had this idea of this girl that just kind of is moving with it, and then the hazy kind of light from the barn or from the hay bales. I wasn't sure that we could all handle the the dust, so I brought in a smoke machine. I thought that would be a better solution rather than having everybody cough and get red eyes. But so then that's how your idea and your planning kind of grows. So I had the location. Find the location first. That's what I think. Location first. Once you have your location, you find your subject. If it's a model, if it's an animal, whatever, whatever it is, maybe it's even a product, you know. But if it's a model, you look for a girl on Instagram. You can contact agencies as well. In Sweden, I used a model that I know from before. She's a super kind Swedish girl, and we've had lots of fun working together before for some different commercial work. And I thought, you know what, she would be perfect. I know that she likes animals, and it was important for me that I had a model that wasn't scared of animals, because I knew I wanted to try to include animals in the shoot. And I knew that she liked to ride horses, so I thought, all right, well, we have a girl that can do it all. So it's kind of important that if you have something specific that this girl needs, the model needs to be doing, that you kind of also tell that to the agency, or you tell that to the model if you're talking to them directly on Instagram, so that you're assured that your vision can be carried out. So first thing is location, then you want to find the model. Once you have the two things, you basically have your shoot, but you might not want a naked model. So then is where I get into sort of, what is she gonna wear? What is my idea? Do I want to keep it super simple? Are we gonna get curtains from IKEA and wrap around her and that will be it? Or will I contact different designers and ask them and tell them about my vision? And actually here comes another part that usually kind of melts together for me here, is when this all kind of starts to come together, I start to find ideas but not until then. Then I start to find ideas. I look on Pinterest, I Google different things, and I put together a bunch of images that can best display what I have in my head. So let me just show you guys. Here's a mood board for the shoot in Sweden. And in this mood board you can see the barn in here. You can see, this is one of my images. I think that's the only one that's actually my own image, or maybe this one, but it's okay. It doesn't have to be your images, because you're not out here to copy anybody's work. You're here to put together the mood for the thing that you have already thought up in your head. You already have a vision, an idea, but in order to explain it to other people, you need to be able to show them visually what it is you want to do. And so for that, I put together this mood board. You can do it in Pages, Photoshop, anything. It's super easy to do. You just plug in, drag photos, put them in there, and make it look somewhat good. And I think some people get stuck on this part of it, and it's not really a big deal. It just, you're showing what it is that you'd like to do. With the mood board, I usually make a short description of what it is that I want to do. So this says, my idea is to make an epic styled shoot in Vogue style in Sweden with sheep and horses. Here's the mood and ideas. I envision some amazing dresses and maybe even a picnic styled feel of the shoot. The setting will be indoor in a hayloft and outdoor in open fields. We will use lights to light it up, and that you might not have to add, but I added it because I had to do it, and also I sent this to everybody. So you can do as you want, but it depends a bit who you send it to. I think it's a good idea to have your mood board when you contact a designer, because a designer is a creative like you, and they want to see what they're saying yes to. So a designer definitely wants to see a mood board, and the makeup artist usually, which comes next, usually also wants to see a mood board. They want to see, is this something that I can use for my portfolio? If not, they might charge you more, you know. And the model also appreciates seeing it. So showing this to everybody involved is a really great idea. That way you immediately draw them to your vision. But do remember, try not to make a mood board the first thing, because it just quickly becomes copying of other people's ideas that has already been made, and it's gonna not feel very authentic. And I find that when you do it that way around, it just gets slightly off to what I would prefer. So try to do your mood board once you have your vision, once you have your idea clear. Designers can be there, of course. Their main concern is that their clothes will be ruined. So if they do not know you, they'll be worried about that. So a good idea is to explain to them that you'll of course take very good care of their clothes, that you'll bring it back on this and this date, you need it for these days, this is what's gonna happen, this is your mood, this is your vision, and that you'd love to include them in this. And of course, depending on where we're starting, we're contacting better and better designers as we grow our businesses, as we evolve as photographers. For this shoot in Sweden, I had the luck of bringing, actually for both the shoots, both in Sweden and in Tuscany, I brought dresses from Jesper Huring. And he is a very famous Danish designer that designs for the royal family, and he's very, very well known in Scandinavia. And I've worked with him now several times. I met him the first time, I believe, at a wedding in which he had designed a dress and he was there to do something. And you know, slowly you also bring in the context that you have, the designers or the people you might know, or the people you even admire. And I think that brings together something really quite unique. I brought earrings from a friend of mine that has done jewelry now. She used to be a headpiece designer. And like, work with the people you know and that you love, because then you create a win-win for everybody, and what's better than that? So definitely do that. Then when it comes to the makeup artist, I prefer to work with people I've used before. If it's your first time, I mean, you can't know, so you just got to go ahead. Otherwise, I prefer to use people that I've worked with before. So now I've been fortunate, I've done this for so long that I have people pretty much in every country that I would know or I can contact, and they might recommend me someone else. And for this shoot, I used a makeup artist that I worked with before on a different shoot, and I know that she'll do skin really well, which is one of the main things to look out for with makeup artists, depending which country and which place you're in. In Scandinavia, I'd say most makeup artists do really well skin tones and skins, whereas sometimes in the rest of the world, I mean, in Italy, it can be a bit trickier because they have a different style. They have more like bold makeup and red lips, and in my personal taste is that becomes a bit tacky. It's not what I'm looking for. It's not what fits my images, and I've done those mistakes in the past. I've had a beautiful shoot with a beautiful model that I'd planned really well, exactly like this, and the makeup artist came in, and this was in Italy as well, and she made like really kind of hard makeup on this girl in which I had envisioned a really soft, kind of gentle look, and that became really awkward because as you're in the situation, you're not sure how to deal either. They're also doing their job, and it's hard to correct. So I prefer to know the makeup artist, or at least have a good conversation beforehand. As photographers, look for skin, how well skin looks in their images, and of course they can be photoshopped, but I think what you mainly look for is even skin tones, not too like extreme kind of red here, or any kind of like really, it might be red lips because it's a trend and it's a thing, but like very, very dark makeup, heavy makeup on all photos is somehow what I find can be too makeup. I think definitely if you can see the makeup artist's work in which they've worked with really kind of very, very natural makeup, you can see the makeup better. Like you can see that they can make beauty with little use of big shadows and things. So look for that. That's my advice. Then after you have location, model, now you have a dress. You have to pick up the dress and ensure them that it'll be returned in good condition, or maybe it's sent to you. If it's a designer from abroad, it depends a little bit. If you can't get a designer on board, that's fine. You still go ahead with your shoot. It's going to be okay. What you'll do instead is you go to a store that sells fabric. You find some cool fabric that you can use to wrap around if you like kind of more flowy things. You could also go to one of those used clothes stores and find something there and work with that. You could go to IKEA and find curtains you can drape around her. I mean, so always ask the model to bring nude underwear. That's what I always do. And if she doesn't have it, I always have an extra set with, because any nude underwear, you can really hide so much underneath, and you can play with that, and you can make that really awesome in a shoot. So nude undies, nude underwear, and you can play with drapes and anything else that you might want, and it will fit most anything. So once you have that, you basically have your shoot. It's all set up. You have to set a date, set the time, and do set a date and a time, not like, oh, maybe next week on, we'll see at the weather. If it's super weather dependent, set 2 dates and say we're aiming for this date, the first date. If the weather's really bad, is it possible for you to do it the day after? And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. But definitely just get the date in place, have everything ready. The actual day is crucial, so prepare yourself well. What I like to do is do yoga in the morning, always for me is to bring a speaker to the shoot and have a little playlist already made to fit the mood and the ideas. I think that helps enormously for everyone involved to kind of have something to jam to together and make it a bit of a party, you know, like have fun with it. Again, this is play, and when we do editorial work, we're allowed to play. It's not a wedding, we're not there, like, it's a very different situation. You have to kind of create the mood that you want there. Of course, if it's a sad editorial, and you might have put on music that fits that. So whatever it is, find something that fits with that mood and bring it to the day. Always bring snacks, water, anything like that with for the day. I try to bring it plastic free. You might not want to go to that extent, but it's cool to bring like fruits and snacks for people that they can take while shooting, and have like bottles of water and maybe something else like ready for people to snack on, and have an arrangement for lunch. If you're shooting for a longer time, then you want to make sure that everybody's fed, because people are happy when they've eaten. So don't let people starve, and kind of be responsible for all those little things that goes on at a shoot. Like, you're the boss, you're kind of the one arranging it all, so you're also the one to take care of everyone. But it is very, very important we take care of people when we work, and take care of the model, make sure she has a warm jacket if it's cold or whatever that is, and make sure she drinks water, and you know, because that's also what's going to make people want to work with you again. That it was fun, it was a fun day, it was a good experience, and they know that they can trust you to take care of them. And it's little things, but I think it makes all the difference.
Welcome back. So, Sandra, that was amazing. Like, very inspirational. It's nice. It's always interesting to see how people get their ideas and where from, and yeah, it's really nice.
All the work behind, like the kind of shoot, so it was really, really amazing to see it and know everything behind it.
Thank you, guys.
And I'm looking forward to actually see the next part, which is the actual shoot and everything. But before that, I have a couple of questions. I will take my computer a second, because it's from one of our audience here. Yes. So it's about editorial and magazines. So are you committed to do editorials by magazines, or do you take the initiative to submit for publication?
Both, really. So I both work for the magazines directly, and I also submit to magazines. So if you do, what I did here was I created a complete vision of what I wanted to do for these shoots, for example, and then in that case you would submit it to a magazine that you feel it fits in. Definitely, that's like, it's two different ways of working. One is where you do your creative thing and you submit it to magazines. The other one is where you are either paid or asked to do something for a magazine, and of course that limits your creativity slightly or more or less, depending on the magazine, of course. And yeah, so
yes, that's kind of a follow-up to this question. I had a similar question, like, if you are doing any type of photography and you want to shift to editorial photography, like, how would you do that? And like, what's the best way? Would you approach magazines, or wait and build your portfolio, wait to be contacted via social media, or I guess both, and also it depends?
Yeah, I think it's super important to say that we can't just sit and build our portfolio and put it on our websites and hope that people find you. I certainly haven't had that luck. Maybe some people will. But I think in most cases it is that you have to be out there and show yourself to the magazines or the people you want to work for. And that is truly important. If you don't do that, they're not likely to knock on your door tomorrow. So it's a fine balance always in everything you do. If you do want to get into editorial photography and you're starting out, I think the most important thing to do is really create a shoot just like I did now. And I think if you follow sort of my steps, you can easily create your own shoot and then have that published if you're lucky. I mean, it's not that easy, but it's definitely possible. Yeah. It requires quite a lot of research for the different magazines, so it's I wouldn't send out a mass email. I would always make it very specific for the magazine that you're approaching, so that it has to be tailored to them. You can't just send it out to the masses.
It's actually like a CV, so this is who I am, this is what I can do.
This is why I want a job. It's not like, here's why I would like a job.
You have to work hard for it, you know, to reach, to come to that stage.
And I guess eventually will pay off. If you,
I think so, and also the first maybe 10 times you reach out to someone, it's not necessarily a success, you know, but then they remember you, or
and
the day that they need you. Yeah, exactly. It's really a passion project as well.
Perfect. Yes. So now then we can go to our second part, which is all about shooting and gear and lights you use. And I know that Profoto came to you in Sweden
They're so
to
cool.
assist you with the lights. So it's let's go to our second clip now.
Let's see the magic.
Let's go through the camera bag for today. Have my computer and my mood board as well. In the bag I have the Sony A7R3. Love this camera, it's awesome. And the Sony A1 I have with me today. It has the 50mm 1.2 lens on it, one of my favorites. And in the bag we also have the 90, which I won't use today, but I always have it with me. 16-35, I think that we might actually use today, because it'd be cool up on the hayloft, so we get like that whole feel of the set. We have the 35 as well, which could also be good up there. I'll have to see which one works better. 24-70. Really great lens. I use that a lot for weddings, but not probably so much today. Then we have the 85, which I'll probably use today as well. And the 55, all-time little favorite. And under here is the 70-200, which I don't think we'll use today, unless, who knows. So it's all with me. Then in this bag, I have all my little secrets. Stuff like this. We'll see later on. I'll use some of that. Grandma's pearls. And I have my Profoto lights with me. So today we're going to use, we don't want to be dragging a lot of stuff with us, so we're going to use the little handy, hold on, just open it up here, the handy A1s. Which is super easy to take with you. Really love these guys, and it has battery on, and you can put them on a stand or anything like that. So we'll definitely use these today. I think we're going to have to fill in some light up at the hayloft. And as well as that, we have this one, the B10, which is an awesome light. The upgrade where you just have it with you without any cords is priceless. So yeah, that's what we have today. When you bring these lights to a shoot, because then you're terrified and you're standing there and you're not used to using them, how do you go about it? Like, could you give us like a 3-step, this is what you need to think of, guide to bringing lights to a shoot? Here it is, we're coming to the shoot, we have our A1 or
A10 in this case, slightly different between A1 and A10.
So what is the difference between the A1 and the A10?
It's A1 is a fantastic flash, but we have improved it with Bluetooth, so you can connect it to your smartphone. So I have now 3 units which is connected to the app, and I can individually control them from the app. So in this case I can switch on the modeling light for the B10. I can change the color for the B10 modeling light as well. And this comes very handy when you are maybe alone shooting and want to control the lights from a distance. So it's very simple to work with when you are under time pressure, you can say. So I think it's handy. Some like it a lot and use it all the time, and some use it, you know, occasionally.
Because at least when I started out, having lights with is terrifying because you feel like you cannot control them, and you're aiming and then you think you see this and then you fire and then you see a different result show up on your camera, and I think that's what most photographers feel stressed about.
Yeah.
Shooting with flash that I think you really need to get used to is you have to check the back of the camera more to see the actual photo. You know, because if you just keep shooting with the Sony, you see everything, like you see what you get.
Yeah.
With flash, you kind of have to double check that you get what you want. And let's see.
It's about understanding how light behaves, and all lights behaves the same. It doesn't has anything to do with ProPhoto. So you need to understand how light behaves and what you can do with lights.
And I think for me, I really like to use the lights and shoot them backlit, like we're going to do now. But you can't just shoot backlit because then you have a dark subject.
But your style photography is very much, you mimic the natural light.
Yes.
And you have understood that sometimes you don't have enough light where you go.
Or even like in this situation where, I mean, we were lucky enough to have the light that I was hoping for, but then you have a subject that's really, really dark. And without the lights on her, you have a lot of posts trying to get back the image and correcting, and you could maybe get away with a reflector or something in that way, but you'll still be missing a lot of details in the shot, I think. So right now we're going to put a grid on because I think it floods too much the floor here as well, and I'd rather have more focus on her than on the floor. So I'm going to get a grid. So it didn't just flood the whole scene.
In general, I mean, the grid is nothing new, but quite many photographers have realized that without the grid, I'm a little bit out of control once more.
Yeah.
So with the grid, you can direct the light towards the subject.
And it's still very soft light.
Yeah.
So you have the softbox with the grid, you have a very cool, and I really like this one.
So by using the soft grid, you can easily actually control the light in a new way. So we have more direction on the light. This one creates an effect of more like a spotlight, but it's not really a spotlight because it's still a softbox, so it's soft light. But we remove some light on around the model.
And so this way you get it more direct, right?
So, and it's made of fabric, so it's collapsible, quite easy to mount, as you see. So,
perfect.
And now we might need to go up about 1 f-stop in power.
Okay.
So let's do it. I mean, now we have the USF adapter in the top here, and it makes it possible for us to actually use existing reflectors as softboxes to the A1. Because
so you can use all of these with the little one.
Exactly. There are some accessories from the RFI line of softbox, which is quite heavy. You can mount it, but it's not going to be a practical good solution. So everything connected to the USF line of products would fit here.
Can be mounted on the little one. And how much can I get away with that or will I need this light?
I mean, it's about the power, you know, and
how much
some photographers, they need a lot of watt seconds or flash power. Let's say if you're going to compete with sunlight outside, then to be able to control the light, sometimes you need quite a lot of light. Here we're working kind of indoor with having, you know, light coming in to this room. So we're working with quite small amount of light.
Yeah.
So
I
here
think
it's ideal.
for someone like me as well that I don't flood with a lot of light.
In general, I would say portraits or, you know, also weddings is not that much lit up. You have to bring lights for some pictures.
Yeah.
because you don't have the light there that day.
Naturally, yeah. But I think what's also really important about like how I use lamps and lights is that I have it as my backup. You know, I have it as my plan B in case the natural light that I'm hoping for in Scandinavia isn't what I was aiming for. You know, which is often the case, and I think knowing that you have a sun in your bag is very like super helpful.
One thing I have noticed with the A1 camera is that the sync speed goes up to a 400th of a second. So as soon as you are a mixed light shooter, shooting with mixed light, I mean flash together with ambient light, I would say that feature is really interesting, because now you have more control of the flash or mixed light photography.
Yeah. Fill in a little bit of light from that window, because it's not quite a window. So, what do you think, Mika, if we put...
It doesn't go...
No, it doesn't go, and it also goes up. So, if we could fill in and make that sort of overexpose a bit, just like we just did. So we put that there, and we maybe put in a bit of fill light here. If I want a backlight now, what do I need to do? Because I want to control the one light from here, which is on this one.
So preferably, I mean, the distance between the subject and the light is constant. So this is something we can put on manual, I would say.
Okay, so you would put this one
on manual. So I think we can do a test where we're only focusing on the back light.
Yeah.
How strong could it be, or
yeah.
So we can do a test like now. And then we move this stand. So this is only a test for the... Now it's only a test for the backlit.
Yeah. Let's see.
Nothing else.
Too little.
Yeah.
Not enough.
I increase it a lot now.
Okay.
5.5, so that's half a stop.
Yeah.
Let's see. That's pretty good. It creates a little bit of green light
but
past
position...
it. Well, we want it to kind of be like as part of this, but maybe it could be up here.
Yeah, if it's there, that's simple. Then
Hold on. Yes, and the other one doesn't fire.
We have done a test with the A10, but we need it to be on a totally other level, and I'm going to hide it here in the window. And the A1 comes with one of those, so we're going to use that as a kind of a stand. And just simply put it here. Now we have done first test with the power, so we can easily control that one either from the app later on, or go to the unit and dial up and down the power.
Once you have everything set for your shoot, I do this. So I have my mood board and my ideas of the shoot, and here's my barn. As you can see, it's here, this one. I sit down and I draw it out. This is going to look like a I'm teased all the time because of this, but I don't care. This is my barn. These are the things where light comes through. This is the beauty of the shoot for me. All this light coming through. Now I know there's a thing right here that looks kind of like this, looks like an ugly beam that's right there that I don't love so much. But, and here are these big hay bales over here. And things like this. So this is how I draw it up. And I put in my model, and she's happy. Yes, I'm teased for good reason, because when I show this to people, they're like, what are you thinking? But you get it, right? This is my idea, this is my vision. She's here, she's wearing a dress, and I have an idea of some kind of flowy arm movement dance. So now there's a few things going on as you start drawing things up. At least for me, I'm starting to realize, well, hold on a minute, there's a problem now. There's not going to be enough light on this girl's face here because there's no windows, there's just a big old barn on this whole thing. The only light I have coming in is from here. If it's a sunny day, I might get away with it, and now with like great cameras, we can get away with much more. But what if I don't? So in my little here planning, I start to plan in potential light. You need to plan also your lights and put them in where you think you might need it for the day. So in this case, I've kind of decided that I need some lights in definitely on the model, because she's going to be quite backlit, and otherwise she'll just be this dark shadow. I'm still going to expose for the background and do the whole thing so I get that exactly as I want it, because that's like my main thing, is this barn with the light coming in through. So that's what I'm going to set my camera settings for and expose for. And then we'll add in the lights afterwards, but I'll show you all that here. Then the other thing I wanted to add is that I want smoke for this shoot, because I'm not sure that we can all handle the allergy of the hay and the actual dust. So I mean, there's pros and cons about everything. There's some really cool haze machines now that you can get. I couldn't get one here in time, so that is definitely what I would prefer. I think that makes like the most beautiful kind of haze, even haze. We could just get a smoke machine, or I could get smoke bombs. Smoke bombs become really quickly really hard to handle, and inside they're not a great idea. We talked about a vapor smoke pen, but we kind of went back to the smoke machine because you can control it, you can push it on and off, and the downside to that one is that the smoke becomes kind of bluish, but it's something you can fix in post. And also the smoke kind of stays as smoke, and I didn't want like a fire in a barn kind of look. It was not at all what I was after. So again, it's super important that you don't, otherwise you're gonna create so much work for yourself in post to try to make that look good. You gotta make sure as well that you have power cables with you, you have extension cables, anything like that. Come super prepared for a shoot. Try to think ahead what you could possibly need. The makeup artist is going to need power and a place to set up as well. We had in this case like a little room that we could put in a heater, and she has electricity and everything was good, and they usually need like a window with light to work in. Like anything sort of like this window light would be great. Yeah, so there's a few details before that you need to just think about, depending on your shoot, of course, and how many aspects there is. In our case, there was also the animals. I wanted to bring in the animals as kind of like props and part of it. There was one shot that I knew I wanted of her, which is another good idea, is to sort of draw out your different ideas. And again, my beautiful, beautiful drawings I do different drawings. So I have my main one, which is with the model, as you saw before. Then I want one where she's kind of facing the horse. Yes, this is a horse. And it even has ears. Then I want another one where the model stands up and holds a little sheep. And I know they have sheep there. This is definitely a sheep. And she's gonna stand up, and I had this idea that she should have a short dress on for this and kind of show some legs and hold this little sheep up in a cute way. They did tell me that they're not so small anymore, these little lambs. They're more like bigger ones now. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Don't know what one of those weighs, but it's going to be a bit heavy for her to hold. And as you see the shoot, you'll actually see that we ended up having it with her sitting down because they are quite heavy to carry for a little model girl, and for anybody. I try to hold it as well, and they're heavy. And so sometimes your vision and your idea, you have to adjust according to what's going on, on the day. And try to be, on the actual day, even though you have your vision, try to accommodate people's wishes where possible. So I try to really work with the people that I have around me, make sure that they have what they need as well, and that we all kind of collaborate and share in the experience. I think that makes for a great shoot, rather than me just coming in and dictating what I want. So for me, a photo shoot, especially editorial work, is a lot about collaboration and finding out and what do you think. And it's good to know what you want and have your vision, because that's ultimately what's going to translate to the other people, and that's what they're going to understand. But you also want to be able to be a bit fluent and fluid and kind of go with the flow of what happens on the day. There could be different kind of things happening, like it is now a really heavy lamb to stand there and hold, and the girl can't do it, so we'll have to readjust. Maybe she can sit. Maybe there's another way, and you also want to make sure that you maintain and take care of the dresses you have. So there's a lot of things, and sometimes our ultimate idea is just not possible because we might ruin a dress or we might ruin an animal. No, but there might be some kind of way that won't be possible. So just be ready to kind of shift your idea and go with what you have. You're gonna come home with a lot of photos, hopefully, and here comes the culling. And for me, this is one of my least favorite things to do, but I think it's important to go over it. So for me, so as soon as you get home, do please back up your images. You do not want to lose them. It is so sad when that happens, so do back them up. And about the culling and finding which images you're going to move forward with, there's so much to look at when you do it, and I'll show you guys on a full screen recording how I go through it. Before that, I just want to say that for me, there comes a form of anxiety with looking at the images, and I look very little at the images as I'm shooting. And it might be because I also come from the film world, in which you shoot film and you can't see the result until you develop. So there's pros and cons about everything, and there's different ways of shooting everything, but for me, as I'm shooting, I'm just going and I'm working and I'm in it, and I don't like to stop too much to look at the back of the camera and constantly be I find that distracting for the people that I'm photographing, and for me, I get out of the mood and into it again. So I tend to really try as much as possible to avoid stopping too much. if you're shooting for a magazine, this is a different thing, and you might have to show it on a screen and make sure you have the shot until you move to the next close or something like that. But for an editorial shoot that you're the boss of, I would try to play, and of course you check that your light is right, you check that your settings are correct, you know. But when all that's said and done, you play, you shoot, you move with the subject, you talk to them while you're still in there in the lens with them. That for me is super, super important. But that's also why when I come home and I start culling, there's a certain amount of anxiety in me, a little bit of an imposter feeling of what if I didn't succeed. But usually as I'm shooting, there's going to be this time in which I'm like, this is the shot, this is the shot. Like, and I go through them like that. I know that I have them. This is what I was looking for. And I try to move on once I know I have it, because we tend to otherwise just stay and stay and stay in a shoot. And it's also out of respect for our subject to kind of like move on and get on with it once we have what we need. But so you have an idea, and you know that you kind of got it, and of course you've looked at the camera. You know, it's not like you haven't. And there's breaks in which you can take a minute and look and see if everything's all right, and if you have everything, and if it's sharp. I mean, today it's very rarely not sharp, luckily. But it used to be one of my most dreadful things, is to come home with something that wasn't sharp. Culling is where you need to put on loud, good music, look through it and kind of go, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. I call through the whole thing really quite fast, and then I go back over it slowly. And that's just what works for me. It's different for everybody that does this. I don't know exactly how it's gonna work the best for you, but I'll show you here what I do. The editing of the actual image I do in Lightroom or in Capture One that I've started using recently, and I really like to play with something new. I do sometimes use Photoshop if I need something very specific, like the liquidation tool, and make something that is crooked straight or something like that. But I try for most part to avoid photoshopping my images too much. It's just my personal preference. Everybody's different. I prefer to not spend too much time in editing, and rather more time when shooting. So anything like that I can put in, I always bring these pearls. You've seen them in the photo shoot as well. And I use them to hold in front of the lens. I have like fabrics that I hold in front, and I use that for when something I don't want to see. If there's something slightly annoying to me in the frame that I don't like, I can cover it with something. Or if I just want kind of that foreground bokeh that it gives. And I think doing that as you shoot is much easier and prettier than doing it in post. So just think about that as you're shooting. So the more you can do as you're shooting, the less you have to do in post and editing. Of course, there's still lots of details when editing that I look at and go through, and I think I'll show you like a short editing session, but that's like its own whole masterclass on editing. And so I'll show you a tiny little bit of it. We'll get Capture One to do like a separate session with the full editing of an image that I have given them and told them exactly how I want it, so you can see how it's done. Then when your images are all done, here it's important to figure out what's going to happen with these images. What is your aim? What do you want to achieve? Do you want them featured in a magazine? Do you want to submit them to a blog? Do you just want them for your own creative portfolio and share them online? Do you think you might be able to sell them, use them in your print shop? I don't know. You be creative and you have your idea before the shoot, and you kind of know what you want with them. So submitting your images to magazines and blogs and things is also like a really quite big subject to cover.
Welcome back, Sandra. Wow, what an amazing, mind-blowing workshop you did. The shoot, wow, it was so inspiring, I think so. But we saw what you did, you know, with the shoot, the model, and also the equipment you were using, the Sony, the Pro Photo as well. Let's go through some of the images you shot in Tuscany and also in Sweden.
In Sweden.
Shall we do that?
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
So let's go and look at some of the photos that we can see right now. Yes? We have, let's see what is. So now let's see.
We thought it would be cool to kind of be able to show you guys the images rather than just have them on the video as well.
Yeah, and now I believe that we should have. Yeah, great.
We had our first technical problem for tonight.
Yeah, exactly. So the first photo we are going to see is that, oh, my screen is not, I need to see the screen. Yeah, because my computer's screen is turned black. Now, there you go. So we see this beautiful image from Tuscany of the model.
Yeah, that one's probably one of my favorite photos from the shoot in Tuscany, and the one that we've used for quite a bit of things already. And it's shot like really backlit in the sunset light, so it's quite difficult. I could almost not see the model, you know, myself, and but I really love how it turned out, and just I put a little bit of fabric in front of the lens, so you kind of get that hazy forefront, like in the front. So, yeah.
Exactly, amazing. Which lens did you use for this photo?
It was the 50-1.2
beautiful.
at 1.2.
Yes. And which camera?
With the A1.
With the A1,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's just look at the next photo. So do we still have the PowerPoint? No? So the PowerPoint is making fun with us right now.
So Sandra, maybe you can tell us until we fix this problem. Like, how did you decide to go from?
So we have here, yes.
Perfect.
Sorry, Annie.
Yes. How did you? Can you tell us about your journey when you moved from DSLR to using mirrorless? Actually, some people have heard about it, but it would be nice to maybe repeat it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've shot everything from like old film to today shooting mirrorless, and it was kind of, I was a bit of a dinosaur. Like I really didn't want to switch, and I felt like that was a big step for me. But it was about 2 years ago that I switched to Sony, and I started with the A7 R3.
Mark III, yes.
And it was just a new world. It took me a tiny bit of time to get used to just like how it was looking through the viewfinder. I think was more of the thing that really kind of took me some time to getting used to. But also as soon as you then realize, you just slightly change your shooting ways, because you actually realize that the camera does so much more for you than what you're used to. So it takes a bit of like getting used to that. But now I don't even know how I could return. It's funny how you get really handicapped going backwards. You know?
I remember that in the very beginning, we spent a lot of time together, you know, looking through the camera and the menu, the viewfinder as well.
Yeah.
But you kept on, and well done now.
Yeah, and really, I think within the first month, I shot one of my biggest weddings.
Yeah.
With the Sony cameras. So, and the whole team did. So I think we just kind of jumped, and that's how I do things. I just jump head on, like head first, and I don't think I've ever looked back. So it's kind of just how it was.
But also that it's a small equipment. So watching you, I remember in the movie clip we saw before, you were actually climbing up the ladder with the bag.
Yeah.
So the equipment is lighter, so it's easy for you to like travel around.
That's true.
More
it's
equipment.
True. It's really made it a lot more handy for me to, and also because I travel a lot. I mean, did post pandemic,
Yeah.
but be able to get all the gear on board of a flight used to be a massive problem, and we used to have to be
Can
two
you imagine?
people, you know, in several bags.
Right. Yeah.
We had like a trick going on, but now it actually all fits in one bag. And
Exactly.
if I'm not bringing too many lights or other like tripods and things, which I just bring the little Pro Photo and a few little smaller lights, and it works really well. So I can
Great.
travel light.
And besides the viewfinder, as you has got used to now,
Yeah.
then I know that you like some features like the eye focus.
Yes, I do. I mean, and also you're shooting something like the photo we saw before. In the past, you got a lot of blurry images and kind of out of focus images, and shooting with more confidence in that way has really, I think, helped me a lot to be much more confident in my work and knowing that the photos are sharp, you know, so, and that is not because I improved greatly as a photographer, unfortunately. I think that is the camera that just simply is really, really good, right?
Yeah, because now the camera has become a tool that gives you more freedom to frame, and then you can rely on the new features, technologies like the eye focus.
Yeah.
I don't know what about the silent shooting. Do you use that as well?
I have used that quite a bit, actually. And I found that it's a really, really handy, like the old cameras were very clicky, you heard the sound a lot, and even film cameras, you hear the sound, in which I found that it really kind of distracts from the subject that I'm shooting.
Right.
And models tend to like go between clicks like this when they move, because they're taught like that. And you get a much more fluid photo shoot when you're shooting on silent. So I do it a lot, and the A1 is so silent as well, just with sound, you know. So if you have a bit of music playing, which I often do, then no one hears the shutter go, which is I don't like that. I don't like the distraction of something between me and the subject. So for me, that's super important.
I think that also that
and for weddings, you know,
weddings in the church, for example, the priest will be really, really happy.
Oh my
That
goodness!
you don't make any
He loves
sound.
you. You will go to heaven.
Okay, I see.
No,
well,
but it's true. At weddings, it's a super handy thing to have the silent shooting, like hands down. Also because you don't want to be seen, and you kind of want to be in the corners, and you don't want them to know when you're photographing the dad crying, or you know, like you don't. It's kind of distracting if you hear this click, and you're like, oh really?
So you
It's
get
not as
those-
natural.
No,
it's
it creates like an awkward feeling.
Yeah.
You
so.
get those emotional moments that you won't
Yes.
get with
Yes.
with shutter sound.
Yeah.
This is
No,
where the best
definitely.
pictures come from as well.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So
With that note, we're gonna go on a break right now, actually.
Yeah.
And when we come back, we will see if we have fixed this problem with the pictures,
Yeah.
and also we have a session with Capture One, actually. So that will be after the break. 5-minute break, guys. See you afterwards.
See
you can take the
you.
survey now and say how you like us so far, or you can wait until the end, or ask as many questions as you can, as you want. Thank
and
you,
remember
and see you
that
soon.
you can win the prizes when you take the survey.
Yes, that as well. See you in 5, guys.
See
Thank
you.
you.
Hello guys, we are back to the Sony Masterclass with Sandra Åberg. So now, right after the break, let's look at the beautiful images you have taken in Tuscany and in Sweden. Are you ready for that, Sandra?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that. So, the very first picture, you explained a little bit about that one, was taken in Tuscany with Alpha 1 and 50mm. So beautiful, and you see the eyes are tack sharp. You have beautiful foreground bokeh, but also the beautiful background bokeh. And we can also see that you are shooting backlit by the glooming of the hair of the model, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
It's very
nice.
backlit, and still the camera manages to catch her eyes just perfectly sharp every time. Because there's, of course, many photos like this, but just slightly moved, right? Because she's constantly moving, and I'm constantly trying to get the sun and everything to align.
Yeah, because she's not static.
No, of course not.
So talking about the backlit, the next picture we will see is also from beautiful Tuscany with a very much backlit.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just my style and how I love to shoot, definitely what I go for. This is shot on the 35.
1.4?
Yeah, and at 1.4 I'm pretty sure, without 100% knowing it, but it's how I usually always shoot. And it was just like a really beautiful moment. The sun is actually setting like a few minutes later, so we just had that final beautiful light of the day, like really golden and beautiful. And actually it was kind of like we had to scramble to get to the end of this gravel path with high heels and girls, you know, so there wasn't really time to spend on like putting up lights or doing something really advanced. So we really just went ahead, and I lightened it in post because she was a tiny bit dark, of course,
a little bit
standing
underexposed.
there. Yeah, underexposed.
That's great. But that also comes to the file, the sensor quality, that you can really get a lot of details in post.
Yeah, yeah. Especially underexposed, it's super easy to bring back. Whereas I'm just used to, from the old days with film, you don't want to underexpose anything, you're terrified of it, and today you can really get away with underexposing quite a bit and still bring it back, which I think is it's a great thing, especially for the style of shoots that I do that are backlit. Yeah. It really helps a lot when you don't have a light or a reflector handy.
And let's take the next one, again from sunny and beautiful Tuscany.
Yeah, it's a bit, as you can see, it's just a closer up shot like the other one, and I believe that this is the 50 1.2 again, and I put a tiny bit of fabric in front and a little bit slightly behind the bush. As you can see, there's a bit of green up in the corner. And really just sort of move with the model and have her kind of do her thing, yet you're fighting the last light of the day.
Yeah, right.
So, you know, you're in a bit of a hurry. But yeah, really, these pictures are some of my favorites from the shoot and what I brought home that I really like, but there's like a lot of images, of course.
Can I ask you, we had a question actually from before, did you use any tripod for any of the photo shoots?
No, I rarely use a tripod.
All right.
Really, anything, then it has to be like specific for some kind of product shots that I'll use it, but otherwise not. Like I like to move and be free, and you can shoot handheld now, no problem.
Exactly, and also the Sony full frame cameras, they have image stabilization built in the body, so you can stabilize up to 5.5 steps. So give you a lot of freedom shooting handheld, but also with a longer shutter time.
Exactly. I don't know the technical aspect of that, but I know exactly how it works when I'm shooting.
Exactly.
And also, yes.
No, sorry.
Some of the fabrics and pearls, where do you find them, and what kind of fabrics do you use? It was also a question from the audience.
Okay, well, so it could be anything. Like, actually, this is like my grandmother's old pearl necklace, and it has that kind of a glittery effect. But it can be any kind of cheap pearls or anything that works. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And the white stuff is part of a veil, but if I don't have that handy, I tend to take like a flower or a something and just put it in front, or a leaf or a branch or something. So you just kind of create that frame around your subject.
You also mentioned some IKEA.
Yes, lots of IKEA curtains in my camera bag. Always.
Yeah.
IKEA is your friend.
Yeah, exactly. The discount code for IKEA.
Oh.
It's not sponsored, guys. Don't
So
worry.
talking about IKEA, let's fly back to Sweden,
Yes.
where you did the shoot in the farm or in the barn,
Yeah.
where we see here. Very nice light as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, so as you saw in the video, it was really just a random moment that inspired me when I was there with the kids. And it was a bit harder to recreate what I had envisioned than I originally thought. Mostly because the day that I was there was a super bright sunny day, and the day that we were going to do the shoot, it was raining.
I remember that.
And I was a bit terrified that we wouldn't have this beautiful light coming in,
Yeah.
because without that you don't have anything.
You made a great.
But we were lucky enough, and we did have enough sunlight on the day, and then we filled in quite a bit with lights, and Profoto was
Yeah.
super handy there to help, as you saw as well. And I really love it. It's interesting once you go through the images and try to find your favorites, and there's just something personal that sticks out for each photographer, I think, but those are definitely some of my favorite photos. And I think mostly what I look at all the time is how the light comes in and how it hits the
Exactly.
subject. And I've had like things, and it's a bit of a funny thing, but Joe sometimes tells me, like my partner, he helps me cull images, and he'll be like, "But Sandra, why did you pick this image from a wedding?" And I'm like, "But the light is so beautiful." And he's like, "But the person looks weird." You know, and sometimes I get completely blinded by
The
the
light.
The
light.
light, yeah, just the light, yeah.
So
I understand what you mean. It's so important as well.
yeah.
And I remember that we had crazy ideas talking about this workshop. You know, if the weather was fine, you would do something outside with a
Yeah.
horse and a
Yes.
model. But yeah,
And we still push through, which I feel like you always have to do. You push through your vision, but sometimes it doesn't come out. I mean, there was pouring rain, and the girl is soaked, and the dress is soaked, and everybody's, you know. So that didn't really turn out how I'd planned it. But then again, then you bring out that vision in another shoot for next time.
exactly. Then you have that for next time.
Keep the
Exactly.
inspiration.
Yeah, you keep those things, and they
Yeah.
grow to better things, I think.
And now that we have seen all these like beautiful final pictures, we should move on and take a look at the not the Capture One, the Capture One session where they actually turn raw images into magic.
One of these pictures.
One
yes.
of the pictures, of course, not all
From
in all.
Sweden.
They will stay all night long, but one of the pictures, let's take a look what Capture One can do with one of the raw images.
I'm excited.
Hi everyone, my name is Maria. Welcome to this Capture One editing session. Thanks everyone for joining today, and thanks to Sony Nordic for giving us this opportunity. So today we'll be editing one of Sandra's photos. I have it prepared right here. This is my proposed edit. The idea was to follow her guidelines to try to simulate her style of editing in Capture One with the different tools that we have. I know that it's not exactly the same, it's kind of an interpretation, but I hope, Sandra, that you will like it, and I hope that everyone will enjoy it. I tried to be as faithful as possible to your original proposal, but you know, kind of investigating a bit more into what we can do with Capture One color tools. So this is a photo that we have for today. We have around 20 minutes, so let's get started. This is my edited version. We should start by resetting all of the adjustments of the photo and starting right from the beginning. As you can see here, I have already a couple of layers. I'm really into layer editing, and I'm going to be doing a lot of layers today, so I hope that you can all follow. I will try to be very clear about what I'm doing, so you are all able to understand what's going on. Let's just start by resetting the adjustments by clicking this button here, and this is the raw file that we are coming from. As you can see, we had a couple of things going on, but let's just get started from the beginning. The first thing I did here was to apply some cropping, because I kind of wanted to focus the attention on these two subjects that we have. We have a model, we have a horse, which looks gorgeous, and I felt that this part over here was kind of distracting from the motive, so I thought just to apply a cropping. Cropping tool is right here on the toolbar, And then we have different aspect ratios that we can choose from. For this kind of photos, I like to go for 4/5 because it just reminds me to the magazine format, and it kind of helps giving us this fashiony mood. So yeah, just by applying some cropping here, we can see that it just kind of works better in the matter of how we are framing our subject. And since we have a lot of information in the rows of the Sony A1, then you can feel free to apply really heavy croppings, and that's still going to be pretty okay. So after the cropping, the first thing that I like to do is work on some of the basic adjustments like color, white balance, light, contrast, and a couple of the basic adjustments from the tools that I'm sure you all know about, even from other softwares. But instead of applying them to the background, I always like creating a new fill layer, and then I can use this layer as my background, and I'm going to show you why. So here we have a layer panel. I'm on the exposure tool tab. I'm going to click and hold, and then I'm going to go ahead and create a new fill adjustment layer. And what a fill adjustment layer means is that we already have a mask that covers the whole photo, the whole image, and that means that all of my adjustments are going to be applied to overall in the image, and that's exactly what I want. And the reason why I do it like that is, if I just go too far with any of the adjustments, I can come back here to the opacity slider and then just reduce the opacity as I need it. Just to start with, I'm going to name. I always like to give name to my layers because I tend to do many layers on top of each other, so then it's easier to understand what's going on in each of them. So I'm going to start by filling the picture with light. Sandra's style is very fresh and full of light, so I'm just going to start by increasing the exposure a bit, and I'm going to increase the brightness as well. We tend to think that exposure and brightness are the same thing, but they are actually not, because what exposure does, if you take a look at the histogram here, exposure is going to take all of the information on the histogram and push it all to the right or to the left if we're applying a negative exposure. And what the brightness is doing instead is just grabbing the midtones. So in this kind of image, we're going to have to do both of them because we want to push everything a bit to the right and then focus a bit more specifically on the brightness side of things. So something like around there, I think it's going to be a nice start. And then I'm going to also apply a curve. We could also apply contrast by using the contrast slider or the levels. Probably I'll be using the levels a bit later on. But I do like to work with curve for different reasons. First of all, because it's one of the tools that is more complex and it allows us to do a lot of different adjustments into one single tool. So we can apply contrast, we can apply contrast in midtones, we can veil the blacks. There is a lot of stuff that we can do with the curves. And then also because in Capture One we have the Luma curve that is going to focus our contrast adjustments only on the Luma channel. That means that colors won't be affected as much. So I'm coming here to my Luma curve and I'm applying a very simple S-shaped curve that's going to give us a bit more of contrast. It's going to give us some punch without ruining the colors. So in the matter of contrast, I think that's quite fine. I'm missing probably a little bit more of light on the midtones, and instead of doing that from the brightness now, I'm going to do it from the levels. In here in the levels we have the blacks, we have the whites, and then we also have the slider for the midtones. That's going to be great because it's going to target much more where we are working in the dynamic range, and I feel that it's just like very straight to the point, and this is exactly the kind of tones that I want to push up a bit more. So right here around the midtones, I think that's going to be fine. It's important to be always taking a look at the before and after to not forget where we are coming from. That's important, and that's going to help us to see where we were coming from and if we are on the right way to what we want to achieve. So the before and after button is right here. You can just press it for a global view, or then you can just choose the split view slider. That's probably going to be more helpful here. So this is the before, this is the after. We're doing quite nice here. And then we probably need to warm up this image a bit more to just, kind of recreate this sunset feel that we have with this light filtering through the window. So the first tool that we're going to be using for this is the white balance tool. It's one of the most basic tools, and unlike many people think, it doesn't necessarily have to reflect exactly what the color temperature was in the moment of the capture. It can be also used as a creative tool. So we can warm everything up in the global in a very natural way, like without creating any weird dominance or anything like that. So that's going to be really helpful. If we switch it too much toward the yellow, that's going to become kind of reddish. And in my experience, we can reduce this by just dropping down the tint a bit. It's true that I do tend to use more greenish tones in my photos. Today I'm going to hold myself from doing that because I know it's not Sandra's thing. But I think that somewhere around there we have a nice warm feel without completely ruining colors. And I liked this as a starting point. And I think that we can just move on to the next layer. Of course, we're not finished here. This is just the basic adjustments, and then I'm going to be building more from here on. If we want to see the before and after of a single layer, we can just click it here and then click it again to see the result. If I felt I went too far, I can always reduce the opacity, to any point between 0 and 100. In this case, I think I'm going to stick to 100 at least for now. And then as we build layers, we can just be balancing the different opacities as we move on. So that's why I really like using layers. So for the next thing, I'm going to create a separate layer. The next thing I'm going to be working with is color, but in a more specific way, not just with a white balance kind of thing. So I'm just going to create, again, a new filled adjustment layer. And even if it's going to be the same kind of mask, the thing is that I will be able to balance my light and color adjustments separately, and I think that is very useful. I'm going to be introducing a tool now which is called Color Editor, and it's one of my favorite tools in Capture One. The color tools are right here. You can see that the interface is separated into different tabs and it's kind of in a logical order, but this is also customizable. For example, I tend to put this exposure tool tab before the color tool tab, but that's my thing. We don't need to do that for today. So coming back to the color editor, which is right here, we have 3 different modes. We have the basic mode, which features some pre-created color ranges. And then we have the advanced and the skin tone one. And these 2 are the ones that I'm going to be using today. So in the advanced color editor, which is a killer tool in Capture One, we don't have any pre-created color ranges, but what we have to do is to select these color ranges ourselves. And then we have a lot of freedom into refining them and focusing these color adjustments exactly where we want to do it. And in combination with layers, that's super powerful. So the first thing I want to do here is I like to think in my edit about complementary colors, and I like to cool down the shadows and warm up the highlights, especially in this kind of photo where we are really trying to achieve this warm feel of sunset. I think that's going to be very powerful. The complementary color of yellow is blue, so what I'm going to try to do is to kind of switch the color of the dress, not drastically and aggressively, but in a natural way toward a more bluish tone, so that we can lose some of the green information over here, because I feel that it's just going to work better in contrast with the hay and the yellow in the background and the yellow that we are going to be tinting this light on in a while. So the first thing I need to do is to select the color range I want to work with. So this is why I'm going to take my picker. And I'm going to take a sample of color from any point of the dress that I feel is as neutral as possible. And then it's a good idea to click on here and view selected color range, so we can see the exact amount of colors that we selected. We see that the color selection also appeared here. It's very specific, so we might want to expand it a bit to make sure that we are not losing any of the information we need to work with in here, because otherwise we will create color selection that won't be accurate, and as soon as we start playing around with hue, saturation and lightness, we're going to kind of create some artifacts, and we don't want to do that. So open selection, and we can also play around with the smoothness, make a very smooth selection to make sure that everything that we want to play with in the matter of color, it's just finely selected. So once that we have our color selection, we can just go ahead and play around with the hue, the saturation and the brightness, so it's just a proof of concept. Then what we want to do, if I just reset the hue to what it used to be, around 0, we want to, as I said, move it more towards the blues and a little bit further away from the greens, so I think somewhere around there it's going to be fine. We will actually want to saturate it a bit and probably also increase the brightness. If we go too far with the brightness, you see the kind of thing that I was going for when I talked about creating artifacts. So this thing we have to do with moderation. But if we just increase a bit, like around 8 or something like that, we're going to have a very nice color feel and very nice light and fresh feel into this dress, and I feel like this is more like a summery color that fits the image. So this is the before, this is the after. Probably it's a bit too saturated now, so maybe just around there, a little bit of brightness and a bit cooler. Okay, this is the before, this is the after. I think that this is going to be fitting more into our mood. We'll probably have to wait also for the whole color creation process, the whole color grading process, because it's kind of building up the look of the image, so it's not finished yet. We might have to come back to this layer after that and then tweak it a bit more. But I think this is good for starters. Next thing I'm going to be doing is working with the skin tone. And for that I'm going to move on to the skin tone color editor. And it's working mechanically in a very similar way. So we have a dropper and then we just have to take it. And in this case I'm going to select a skin tone sample, and I'm going to try and make it as neutral as possible. So for example, not this part in the shadow, not this part on the lip, or not this arm, which is a bit too saturated probably. So I'm just going to, for example, on the cheek over here, we're going to see that the color sample also appeared here, and this is a whole range that we're going to be working with. And in this case we need to make very sure that we are only affecting the skin tone and maybe other parts of the image that we want to affect, but not, for example, this yellow in the background. There is a lot of yellow information on the skin usually, so we have to make sure that we're not affecting the background, because otherwise when we try to uniform it, we're going to create some issues and it's going to be obvious, so we don't want that. Again, I'm going to select the option to view the selected color range, and we can see here exactly what I was talking about. We have some yellows here, and we probably want to get rid of those in the color wheel. So I'm just going to reduce the yellow selection over here. We can make sure that we still have the skin selected, but not the yellowish tones. And probably also the most saturated parts are going to be left out. I think around there it's going to be just fine. You can see that there is some things going on in the background, but the selection is very mild, so I don't think it's going to really have an effect. And even if it does, then as we are working on a layer with a separated mask, I could just erase this part of the mask later on if I feel like I need to do that. So I'm just going to go here, deselect this to see the general feel of the image, and then I'm going to play around with the hue, saturation and brightness of the skin. In here in the amount you can see that it works in a very similar way to how the advanced color editor works, but just in a much more conservative way, in a much more subtle way, because it's just meant to work with skin tones and we normally don't want to create a drastic change in skin tones. So even if I go toward the end of the slider, you can see that we're still going to be fine. So let's just play around with saturation a bit. Brightness, I'm not personally a big fan of this slider, but that could just work as well to just throw some extra light on the skin. You can also see, if I deselect my layer, that it's affecting the fur of the horse. Normally I would want to take that away, but I'm actually not bothered in this case, because as they are both the main subjects, I think that it's good that we create some saturation in both of these tones, because they are close, because they are on the same level, and we want them both to be the protagonists. So why not throw also some extra saturation and brightness on the horse. And then down here we have, as opposed to the advanced color editor, we have the uniformity sliders, and that is super useful to work with skins, because then we can just, if I'm going to overdo it a bit, just see the difference. That's going to uniform everything according to the sample that we took. So you see, if I go too far, it's going to be kind of a weird feel. But then you can see, for example, here in the saturation, that all of the skin tones that I selected that are going towards the same saturation range, which is good in some cases, because it's normal that we all have different skin tones in different parts of the body, even in different days, according to things like temperature or any kind of thing. And it's normal that we have those, but sometimes we want to minimize them, and we want to, bring all the skin tones together to kind of the same ranges. So probably with the hue I went too far, but you can see that it has an effect that I do this, because otherwise here we have like kind of more magenta information, and here was kind of more greenish, so it's good that we can bring everything together. I think after I did that, I probably need to throw in some more green on the skin and some extras maybe, yeah, some extra saturation and something toward there. I think that's a good looking skin. Probably just a little bit less on this and a bit more on that. Yeah, I think that we would be having here a fine looking skin. It also depends on personal taste. Some people prefer more red on the skin, some people prefer less red on the skin. Personally, I'm the latter. But that's fine. It's going to be fine as long as you keep your skin tones within a reasonable range. I think that's fine. Let's just see the before and after of the color editor. You can see that we threw some light into the subjects. We have some extra saturation, and that's going to help us to, kind of create some space between the subjects and the background that is also out of focus because of the f1.2. But I think that these kind of resources in post-production, in editing, are going to help us to tell a better story. Okay, so that would be my second layer. I'm going to be moving on to my third layer now, which is also going to be color related. I'm going to introduce here a second tool that is absolutely my favorite tool in Capture One. It's called color balance. So as you can see, I'm using many layers, but just keeping it very simple. For now, I'm just using fill layers that affect the whole image. Okay, so moving on to color balance, mask overall, that's fine. And let's just see what happens here. This tool is really pretty much based on how color grading for video works, and I think it's super intuitive and very useful to achieve a creative look. And I tend to throw in an extra color balance layer in pretty much all of my edits because it just helps to create the mood, it just helps to tell the story and to play around with complementary colors, as I was mentioning before. We have a master, which would allow us to maybe throw in some extra tint on the whole of the image, but as you can see, it's not creating dominance, it's just doing this in a very natural way. So for example, I think that this is going to be just fine. If I went too far, I can just tune it down a bit from here. I think that should be fine. And then we can also split these tints into shadows, midtone, and highlights. And something that works pretty well in my experience is just to cool down the shadows, just a tad like that. Kind of creating not only some actual contrast, but also some color contrast that's going to be helping us to determine what's going on here. So some shadows toward the blues, probably, yeah, something more over there, like towards some teal. And in the highlights, I'm going to tint again with some yellow. That's probably too much, but something around there. That's going to be helpful. As you can see, it's not affecting much on the skin tone because the skin tone will be laying around the midtones, and I'm just playing here with the shadows and the highlights. Probably the master was a bit too much, so I'm just going to tune it down. Something around there. And also an interesting thing about the color balance tool is that we can also use it to fine-tune our shadows and our highlights. So I would like to do with my shadows here just to open them up a bit from here. And as opposed to the high dynamic range tool, bumping up the shadows from the color balance is kind of giving it more the look of like a filter. So it really reminds me when we had veiled blacks into film photography, and it's just kind of this making this black it's not really black feel. So I really like this thing, and I think it's going well for Sandra's style. So I'm just going to be using that. And I think in the highlights we can also throw some extra because we want to really enhance this flare that we have over here. So yeah, I think that's going to be just fine. And you can see here if I turn on and off my shadow, if I turn on and off my layer, you can see that this layer, this color balance tool is making a whole lot of difference into what we are approaching, into what we are seeing in an image, because color has a huge impact on that. So I think that this would be the basic adjustments, and then we can have some more fun with some extra layers. And for that, I'm going to be using the new style brush feature that you can find here on the exposure tool tab. We have here a new tool called style brushes, and I'm going to be using just the built-in style brushes, so you can all follow what I'm doing. And style brushes is basically a tool that allows us to pick any of these brushes. So for example, let's start with the soft flare style brush, which is one of my favorites. And it's just going to allow us to work with layers in a very simple way. So it's very intuitive. If we just want to create or enhance soft flare, we just need to grab this one. and everything else will be set up automatically. So it will pick the brush, and as soon as I start brushing in, it will also create a new layer over here. You can see that Capture One automatically created the soft flare layer, and all of these style brushes are coming by default with a low flow. That means that we can just brush in our adjustments gradually. So as you can see, I have a lot of control on what I'm doing over here, and I can just work more into this flare, and I can expand it, I can give it some kind of shape, I can even, you know, give it a different color, which I'm going to be doing in a moment. So we came from here to here with just brushing in a couple of brush strokes, which is really going to help us to achieve this kind of summery sunset feel, I think. We have the light coming in from the background. We have this, we have this light coming in from the background. And the next thing we need to do, if we really want this to look like a flare, is to give it some extra color that is going to be emulating every color in the highlights here, which is going to be yellow. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to my built-in style brushes, color, and I'm going to choose the warm balance brush. And the same way that I brushed in the flare, I can just, you know, keep brushing this warm feel all over my highlights, all over my flare. And even if the flow is very low and you can feel that you can't see obviously that I'm doing anything, if I turn off and on my layer again, you can see that I'm slowly brushing all of this in, and I think that, you know, that's looking quite nice. If I went too far, for example, with my flare, as I said, you can just reduce the opacity a bit, which I think I might do. Yeah, something around 85%, that's going to be fine. For example, in here I brushed a little bit too much, so I can just take my eraser and delete a bit from here. And I think that's going to be just a nice flare. If we want to make it even more aggressive, another thing that works just very well is just to create a new layer. It's going to be an empty layer, and then we can just throw a linear gradient mask over here from this side. So because we have a lot of light coming in from the top, but then we might want to compensate that with some extra light coming from the right. So we can press M to see the mask, so something around there. And then we can just, you know, warm it up a bit, either from here or from the color balance tool. Some extra brightness, some extra exposure. That's probably a bit too much. Yeah, no exposure here in this case. Just maybe opening up the shadows over there. Yeah, something like that might work. Going to also apply some extra highlights, yellow highlights here. Yeah, that's fine. And then I can just, you know, play around with the position of this mask to, you know, make it fit exactly the needs. That's probably a bit too aggressive anyways, so just going to reduce opacity a bit. Something around there, it's going to work just fine. And there is really not so much more to do here. I'm just going to be doing a couple of extra style brushes because I think it's a terrific way to edit images, you know, when you can just focus very simple tools into some certain parts of the image and work very locally. So for example, with all of this light over here, I feel like I'm kind of missing some of detail, and for that the Add Details enhancement brush is going to work just great. So I'm just grabbing my Add Details brush, and then you can see also that the flow is very low, and then I can just brush in to wherever I need to recover some details, so probably face, maybe some parts of this dress, and, you know, this fur from the horse is going to benefit also probably from some more detail. So somewhere around there, you can see the difference if I turn the layer on and off. You know, what the Add Detail brush is doing is adding extra clarity and extra structure, which is going to really be helpful to enhance the textures, and, you know, it's going to be good for creating some punch, for creating some extra contrast without completely ruining the shadows and the highlights. So I think that's just fine. I think I might have gone a bit too far because the rest of the image is very soft, so I'm just going to reduce this around 65%. That's going to be just fine. And then we can keep some extra of this punch without taking us too much away from the rest of the edit. And just to end up with this edit, I'm just going to take from the light and contrast side, I'm going to pick the plus brightness brush, and I'm just going to brush in some extra brightness in the places where I think that I might need it. So for example, here in the dress, I might want to, you know, throw in some extra light. Maybe here on the horse. Yeah, basically it's going to be the dress. And even if I'm brushing it very, very slowly, you can see that we already have an effect. And I think that's helpful in, you know, creating this kind of filled with light feel into the image. And it's maybe a good idea when we are finished, or we think we're finished, you know, to start toggling on and off all the layers and see if we achieve the right balance. So this is where we were coming from in the beginning. Then we went on with the basic adjustments, color editor. I think the color editor could be reduced a bit. Yeah, something like that. When we are playing with hue and saturation of colors, it might be a good idea to always reduce the layer opacity just a bit, so it kind of blends with the original, and that's going to give a more natural feel. Then we had a color balance. Color balance can also be toggled down just a tad, probably around 90%. Soft flare, balance, warm. This was our little linear flare over here. The detail and the extra brightness. And I think that this is all for this picture today. I hope you enjoyed the editing process. I hope you liked the end result. And you know, I'll just remind you that we have a 30 days free trial. I suggest you go ahead, you can download it, you can use it all for free during 30 days full capabilities. And I invite you to try out some of these tools that we talked about today. We didn't have time for a lot more, but I hope that that was some useful insight and, you know, some inspiration about the things that you can do with Capture One. I hope to see you around in some other occasion, in some other edit, and take care. Bye!
Thank you so much, Maria, from Capture One. That was really inspiring, and you can do so much with Capture One, and it was looking really, really, really good. Sandra,
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's really cool to see. I mean, clearly Maria is super talented at editing.
Exactly.
And it's really, really fun to see someone edit your photos, and also like getting so close to the result that I would also like to have. So it's really fun to see, especially because she works through so detailed, and I think that's really valuable for a lot of people to see.
Yeah,
It's
I know
really
that
cool.
often you spend a lot of time on editing raw images, and this one was really, really good.
Yeah.
The starting point and then the ending point was really fantastic. And yeah, people remember that you can download the Capture One trial, as Maria mentioned, but of course also if you want to buy the Capture One Pro for Sony, you can get 20% discount right now, but also you have the opportunity to win a Pro license out of 5. So by submitting your survey.
With your feedback, and we of course will send you all the links and discount codes after the event. We will send you a follow-up email to thank you all for joining us tonight. So before we go to the Q&A now, we have some last questions for you from our side here.
Yeah.
So I would like to know, Sandra, how do you submit, after you have done all this work, preparation and filming and photo shooting, your editorial, how do you submit the images to the magazines? And also, do you retouch them yourself, or are they allowed to retouch them, actually?
Yeah, I saw that was one of the questions as well. And so for me, I do all the retouching myself. I always have. If there's something very specific, I might ask for help. But otherwise, I always do my own retouching. I will sometimes send out some of the weddings for color correction, but I'll still edit and retouch everything myself. And I've never had that happen to me, that someone else or a magazine edits the photos for me or puts their interpretation of it. And I don't think as artists that's something we would appreciate so much. I definitely wouldn't. So everything that comes from me is a result of what I've created.
Yeah.
And I do edit in Lightroom as well as Capture One. I'm moving more towards the Capture One. Clearly I'm not still as good as Maria, but getting there, learning. So it's really, really fun to see as well.
Nice. And how do you submit the pictures?
Well, so once you've done the actual photo shoot, you want to try to figure out what magazine it fits for. Another way to put that is also figure out what magazine you want to shoot for first. So it depends how late in the game you start. It's definitely a much better approach to find out who you want to shoot for first. And what I do is quite as simple, but it's also, you have to be a bit smart about it. So you find a magazine that you really want to shoot for. And for me, I really want to shoot for Vogue. So I'll look through a Vogue magazine. I'll see what dress designers are featured, what people they collaborate with, what kind of thing they like, and then I'll try to shoot also so I know it will fit the magazine.
Yeah, makes sense.
And especially also bring in the designers that they already love is going to give you a much higher chance of being featured in a fashion magazine if that's what you're going for. So definitely, once you've done that, you have to just do the nitty-gritty of finding emails and sending emails and all the boring stuff. It's really not very glamorous.
But we can see some glamorous work here. You have brought some of the magazines tonight.
Yeah, I
did. Can you show us some?
Just kind of to show a little bit, like this is some of the work that I've been really proud of. This was a cover that I shot for Vogue and that a lot of people have kind of asked me about. And it was a super cool shoot in London, of all places, and on a dark, rainy February day, which you can see, not.
Doesn't look very dark.
No. And I mean, again, it's how a lot of people ask me, how do you get to shoot for Vogue, and that if that's their dream. It's a lot of reaching out, really. And it's luck and opportunities of collaborations with people. It's hard work, right? It just doesn't come, and you take the opportunities you're given, and I feel like usually one opportunity leads to another, or one person leads to another person, or it kind of goes like that. And I also made my own little book kind of magazine. This is specifically for like weddings.
It's a kind of catalog? Or?
It's kind of like to show your work. I think it's a cool way to show your work to your clients, to magazines even. If you send them this, they're much more likely to see what you can produce. And so if you're not featured yet, you can do this.
Is this something you sell or people have access to? Or
I haven't sold it. I've just made it and given it away, basically. But you can make it for not that much money, and it's a good giveaway to clients as well as collaborating partners. Yeah,
it looks really good.
Thank you. It's a way to print it if you're not in the magazine too, right?
Yeah, I think it's great that you work together with the different vendors, like the dresses, the jewelry, and so on, so that you can show the products and give
you bring
this kind
in these collaborations. I think that's how you become really strong. Also, maybe the designer gets featured in a magazine, rather than just you know. So the collaborations in that sense really strengthen.
It's very important.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, any last words before we go to the Q&A?
I think I just want to say that people can reach out to me and ask specific questions if there's anything you feel like I didn't really cover. And just get out there and do it and have fun with it. I think part of this is really to have fun doing it, and I think I want to really encourage people to do that and not be too scared of failing. We're all so scared of that, right? Go out there, have fun, and create something magical.
Perfect. Great. So I'll grab my computer now, and we can go to some questions for you. Yes.
Yes, and I know that you guys out there, you're being very good at supporting each other, and also with comments and also with questions that we also have answered along this event, Masterclass. But let's see, Annie, do we have any additional questions?
Let's start with, what camera accessories do you prefer to use? Hand straps, shoulder straps, and can you tell us a little bit more about Jam Darling? You are one of the co-creators or the creator, right? And What makes them so special, and do you ship outside Europe?
We ship worldwide. And yeah, I created the company because I felt like there was a need in the market for something lighter and not heavy. And I found myself with really light cameras now, you know, and with really heavy camera straps, which didn't really work for me. And little girl, you know, you want something a bit not so heavy to carry around. So I created the straps really for women to start with, but we found that men as well, not all men want the big chunky camera straps, and actually are cool enough to wear a kind of female brand, which I think is cool.
Do you actually want to show us? You have one here.
I do
Yeah,
have
you brought one. Yes.
Briefly,
strap.
yes.
Yeah, so this is the single strap, which I really love, and it's just easy, and you can have it over like this, and you have your camera attached underneath, and so it's really handy.
Nice.
Yeah,
Very
and they're made in Italy with like
fashionable.
cool.
Yeah.
They had to be a bit fashionable.
Of course.
Yeah. So yeah,
So do you use any other sort of straps, hand or?
I don't use any hand strap. I've never used that. Actually, it's not what I would like to use. But I do use the double harness that we also have, and then a single harness, and that's what I use most of the time.
Okay, perfect. Next question.
Yeah.
Do you have a mood board for every photo shoot, or are you sometimes being creative as well? Do you always create a mood board? I know you
Yes,
like
I
mood boards.
actually do. I actually always do that, right? I think it's important to communicate to the people you work with what your creative vision is, and I find it very difficult to explain that with words as a photographer. So that's why I do the mood boards as part of. Yeah, really.
It's a good way to communicate what you're thinking.
This
and
is
your
what
vision.
I'm thinking. Yeah, but the idea comes way before the mood board, which is super
yeah.
important, I think.
That was one of the
to
tips,
point out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Good, perfect, yes. So how do you set your custom buttons for focus setting? And do you switch between face and eye focus and single spot?
Well, I am kind of the person that I don't stick with anything that consistently. It depends a lot of what I'm shooting. I like to shoot where I can move the, what do you call
Focus, spot focus.
Yeah, the spot focus. That's the one that I prefer because, and I think it's just because I'm old school and I come from being used to more control because in truth I don't really need it, and I try to force myself oftentimes to not do that. So I do try to shoot on all the modes just to kind of challenge myself still because I do tend to want to control it myself.
Yeah, you don't want the camera to control.
I don't want the camera to decide. I don't want anybody to decide. I think a lot of people can attest to that.
You own the camera, it's not the camera owning you.
Exactly, there you go.
Great. How do you get such sharp images with such a big aperture at 1.2?
Well, I want to say it's all me. I don't think I can take quite the credit.
It's the photographer.
It is the years of experience.
Yeah.
And it's also, I mean, obviously it is a lot to do with the cameras. And I think maybe someone asking this question is still shooting on our good old dinosaurs. but it truly was a huge struggle for me. It made me so frustrated so often, and I can't tell you in the last 2 years in which I've come home with like an out of focus. Yeah, out of focus maybe slightly for some reason or something, but very rarely. And so it's with the times, right?
Yeah.
It's with the technology, and it's of course also with your
Yes, exactly.
your amazing performance.
Now you can also say that without the mirror in a DSLR camera, for example, without the mirror, you can actually have more in-focus images, like you don't have the back focus issue as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, but
Exactly.
it's really, it's taken that whole subject away from me. I don't even worry about it anymore, and I think that makes you feel like a better photographer.
Yeah.
And whether it's the gear or it's the person, doesn't
It's
matter.
both, yeah.
But yeah,
True.
definitely a lot to say about the gear and that. Yeah.
Which lenses would you recommend most for wedding photography? Because during the day you don't have too much time. So, what would be some lenses that you can be your go-to, basically?
I mean, my go-to is the 50 1.2, definitely. and a 35. I keep those with me. I like to shoot, I don't like to shoot too much with a zoom lens. It's just not my preferred style. But I do at certain times, like in the church, for example, or in crucial moments where you don't want to be missing any kind of length or you can't move as much. So then I would shoot. I do shoot the 24 to 70 quite a bit for that. Like those kind of, where I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, just to cover my bases.
So if you don't have a big, like a lot of time, then you use 50 and 24-70.
Yeah, or the 35.
35.
Yeah, yeah. Those are sort of the ones that I definitely have with me, and then it depends a lot on the setup as well and how close you are to it, of course.
Yeah.
But I always shoot with a second shooter, which also will affect what I'm saying today. So that's just to keep that in mind. And I always shoot with a second shooter that's on a 70 to 200 or something similar. So that covers me in a different way. Yeah.
Great, great to know. So what are your thoughts about the rendering of the 50 1.8 compared to the 80 millimeter Contax 645? And he means in modern lenses, doesn't have that dreamy look that come from the old planar lenses actually.
Okay. So this is a film shooter, and I have a Contax 645
Exactly.
as well. And I do love, love, love the old film look. And I find that a lot of people believe that I only shoot film still, which I take as a huge compliment. But I do think that the 85 1.4 and the 50 1.2 can imitate that look quite well. You would have to add a bit of noise, because it obviously doesn't have as much noise as the old film, but I think if you add a bit of noise to that, it really kind of comes out with that same smooth feel that the old lenses have. And I still shoot with the old cameras, but less and less really, because I feel like I can imitate it quite well, and it still has that softness and personality, if that makes sense, than like the old film.
And I can also add that the G Master lenses that you use, the 51.2 and 85 1.4, both are G Master lenses, and the uniqueness and the philosophy of G Master lenses is that they give you this very creamy bokeh look, like the background defocus is so creamy. So when you add a little bit of noise, as you said before, you get this like a film look.
Yeah, you really do, quite easily, just with adding a bit of noise so it's not too sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so do you shoot in RAW? What format do you shoot?
Yes, always.
Okay, always. And when do you shoot on location, do you prefer direct sunlight or shadow? Or it depends on the time of the day, I guess?
It depends a lot of the time of the day. If I shoot in shadow, I like open shadow, so there's still quite a lot of light coming into it and not too dark. And otherwise, I always shoot backlit, so that would be towards the sun at any, but not obviously in the heat of 12 o'clock sun, but otherwise, I prefer.
Okay. So the one with the model and the flower in Tuscany, the picture, is it with natural light, or have you added some kind of artificial light on the model's face?
The one where she's standing like this,
Yeah.
I'm assuming, yeah. No artificial lights at all.
I think you mentioned that it was all light, natural.
It's all natural light, yeah.
Yes, so what would you recommend for starters, like wedding photography photographers that have just started, like essential lenses, like must-have lenses?
It also depends a bit on budget, I think, but the 50 1.2 is an amazing lens that I would recommend, and I think you can't just do with that, then you'd need to add a 35 and maybe a zoom lens as well. So it depends a bit, again, how much you're willing to spend. The little 55 is also an amazing lens and more affordable, so that's also a really great option, I think.
The 1.8, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what else would I say? A 70 to 200, I don't think you can shoot weddings without that. I think that's really important as well. Yeah, so those would be my... And I mean 24 to 70 again, if you have that 24 to 70, 70 to 200, and then some prime lenses, I feel like you're really well covered. That's what I would say.
Great. Your top 3 photographers.
Top 3 photographers. Okay. Well, the first one is Annie Leibovitz,
Yes.
which is my all-time favorite. Definitely. Then I love the Danish photographer Signe Vilstrup. Also an amazing, amazing photographer. I obviously love a lot of like the really old photographers as well, but they're not the ones I would mention as my like inspiration. Who would be the third one? It's just kind of on the spot. Hey.
Yourself?
No, definitely not.
Someone
Never.
in Italy, maybe, that you have worked, or
No,
yeah.
didn't make the list. Camilla Åkrantz, I really like, a Swedish photographer.
Aha.
And these were like, I think these 3 photographers, if you look at them as well, you'll see a lot of inspiration that I've taken from there.
Great.
When I started out, that was definitely my 3 most inspirational photographers.
So Sandra, do you shoot manual or with priority? Maybe you answered this before. I'm not. It's not very
Well,
clear to me.
again, I like to shoot manual, but I will also shoot in the aperture mode a lot. Like at a wedding, I don't want to have to be stressed but today it's not really a problem to shoot manual. I think with these cameras it's super easy and you see what you get.
Yeah.
So you're not really,
Exactly, yeah.
you know, in the old days it was like you didn't know and you had to check the back and that kind of frustrated it. So because you know what you get, you can play more, and I tend to shoot manual as much as I can, and then sometimes I shoot aperture settings or anything else if I'm not feeling that I have the time, really. Is mostly where it is. Or if there's something with movement, of course, then I shoot shutter. Yeah.
Perfect. I have a very nice, interesting question. So you've shown us the way you achieve the Vogue look, and it's great to see how you create it. Do you consider this to be your own photographic style, or do you consider it just a product for some photo shoots? And do you utilize it, for example, with your own family? Like, do you have the same style when you shoot?
Okay. That's I do think that it's very much my style, regardless of whether or not it's featured anywhere or whatever it is. And I think as a photographer, you have to be true to that vision. And of course, I'll do like a dark and moody photo sometimes in editing or play with other things. And I'm a huge fan of black and white images and kind of like the old school. So that, of course, varies, and I don't show as much of that. Yeah. But no, definitely, I think my style has just grown kind of out of a love for the ethereal.
Yeah. I think you can see the consistency in your wedding work and in your
and
Vogue
then in the
style.
fashion,
Like you can tell that it's you, it's your personal style. In my opinion, always.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Yes.
And I do the same. If I go to the mountains and we're doing something in the mountains, it's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe we are running a bit out of time, and I guess we have answered most of the questions, or I'm sorry if I've missed any.
If there's anything, you can always reach out, and I'm happy to
Yes.
answer anything afterwards, definitely. On Instagram is probably the easiest place and where I'll answer the quickest, so do feel free to reach out.
Perfect. Yes, so
Wonderful,
yes.
wonderful. So we made it.
We made it!
Made it
This was
and on
fun.
time.
Yeah, we are coming to an end, and of course we would like to thank you, all you beautiful and awesome audience out there. Thank you for being with us with the 2.5 hours, and of course huge thanks to you, Sandra.
Yes,
Thank you, guys.
So much. Thank
I owe
you.
you a hug, of course, later.
When you're vaccinated.
Yeah, when I'm soon. Yes, I'm old, so.
Yeah.
But we would also like to thank, of course, our partners, ProPhoto and Capture One, of course,
Yes.
and for the great job they have done and supported us with this masterclass as well. And remember all the promotions and the prices, the survey. Remember to
Yes.
take that.
Take the survey, take it now, tonight, while it's fresh. Tell us how we did, what you want to see next, what can we improve, what do you want to win. So everything, please.
Yeah, because we can say that we can always improve, and it's very, very important to get your feedback. What can we do better next time? What kind of like masterclass would you see from Sony next time as well? And be sure that Annie will send you, of course, an email with all the promotions that we have ongoing as well. So
all the links, the link from today's recording, all the links from Sandra's pictures, raw pictures, and some other gallery.
Oh, and I'll add as well the PDF that people can get as well.
So you'll receive a lot of stuff.
And,
a lot of goodies.
The link to the video as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. So thank you so much. Have a great night. Take the survey. Go get some sleep now. We will also go.
We know that somewhere it's like quite late.
In Finland it's late now, and we know we have a lot of viewers from Finland today. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Take care out there.
Have a nice evening.
Good night.
Good night. Thank
Bye.
you.
Good night.
Thank you.